In this week's lab, you'll be investigating two things: how diffusion works and how enzyme works. To begin, you need to be familiar with the equipment. This is called a graduated cylinder. You'll notice it has lines that tell you exactly how far you're filling it up, whereas this is a graduated beaker. It's much less precise than the graduated cylinder. This holds up to 80 milliliters, and here you have a medium-sized or 250 milliliter graduated beaker. You also have a funnel, two transfer pipettes. Use these by squeezing the bubble at the end, and the liquid will rise up, and you'll see there's gradation marks moving along the surface. You also have a weigh boat. This is to be used for a balance. You have distilled water. You have two small test tubes, a test tube rack, scissors, little floats to use for the dialysis tubing, a test tube clamp to hold the test tubes to remove them safely from a beaker of boiling water, as well as scissors to cut open the dialysis bag. To begin, you'll obtain a piece of dialysis tubing. Dialysis tubing is this clear plastic tube that looks like tape. When it's been dried, you can't do anything with it. However, when it's been soaking in water, you can turn it into a bag. Begin by taking a piece of dialysis tubing and tying a knot at one end. Pull the knot firmly and then go to the other end of the bag. To open up the bag, slide the plastic end in between your thumbs until it opens. You'll now want to carefully insert the end of a funnel into your bag. It's really important that when you're adding liquid to the bag, you be sure to close the end of the plastic firmly around the edge of the funnel. Now, what once was a flat piece of tubing can be used to hold a liquid. In your bag, you'll be adding a combination of 15% glucose and 1% starch. When you're ready to add these solutions, tie off the other end of the bag, blot the bag dry on a paper towel, and go over to the balance to take a mass. You'll never take the mass of a tube by placing it directly on the balance. Instead, you'll take a weigh boat, place the weigh boat on the balance, press tare so this balance shows 0, and then place the object that you'd like to take the mass of in the weigh boat. Be sure to remove the cap on the balance before trying to take a measurement, otherwise you'll get a reading of 0. Instead of pouring from the stock bottles, remove the cap and pour solution into a small graduated beaker. You only need 10 milliliters for your sample, so you don't need to fill it up very much. A small amount will be plenty. Whenever you're pouring into something, hold steady with one hand and then pour into your beaker. You never want to look above the beaker to see if you have the appropriate amount. Instead, you want to make sure to get at eye level and take a reading from the meniscus. The meniscus is where the bottom bubble touches the measuring line. In this lab, you'll be using indicator solutions and glucose test strip to test for the presence of various compounds. The first indicator solution is IKI. IKI stands for potassium iodide, and it reacts in the presence of starch to go from a brown color to a purplish black color. Benedict's solution is blue, and then when it reacts with starch, it can form an orange color. However, in order to do this, the solution must be heated, which is why I'll be using a water bath. To look at IKI, we can take a piece of matzo cracker, simple cracker made primarily of starches. When we take our IKI, we'll see that initially it's an amber color. When we place the solution onto the cracker, watch what happens. The cracker turns a blackish color, but then when the excess IKI is dropped into the weigh boat, you'll notice, since there's no starch in the weigh boat, the IKI stays its original amber brown. The next type of analysis you'll be doing involves testing for the presence of glucose. Glucose test strips can be used to test for the presence of glucose in solution. Initially, the test strips are a pale turquoise blue. Place one test strip in unknown solutions to test for the presence of glucose. One solution per test strip. Here in this weighboat, I have 3 different solutions. While those are soaking and absorbing the solution, you can take a look at the bottle and you can see there's different colors that represent the amount of glucose in the solution. The first solution we've tested here is water, and I would expect there to be no glucose. When I lift up the glucose test strip and measure it against the values, I can see this tests negative for glucose. The second test strip I've completed actually has glucose in it. And the longer this sits, the darker it will get, but you can already start to see that there's a color change. The last strip we've tested is starch. And starch does not have the simple monomer glucose. It has a more complex polymer, and so you'll see it tests negative for negative for glucose. This is important to do before you fill your dialysis bags with solution because you'd like to check that you've put in the right ingredients.